Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a returning guest. We got Vince Barrows coming on with us again. He was on, probably on about a year ago. It's been a minute. And we were talking about Mount Pisgah in North Carolina. Very interesting situation. Some interesting stuff that has been found there. And he has spent numerous hours and gone down numerous rabbit holes looking at all this stuff. And since the last time he was here, he does have a bunch of other stuff to go over. And I expect this to be very interesting. So thank you very much for coming on, Vince. But before we introduce you again, let me introduce Judith. Got Judith co-hosting with me. What is going on? The Loon. How are you, gangster?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to our brief discussion. I look forward to this discussion, Vince. So thank you for coming on. And for everyone else, you can find me on, Spreaker, X, and YouTube as The Loon.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us. And Vince, my man, please let everybody know anything that you want to promote. I don't know if you want to plug your Twitter or anything that you got going on, any sites.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm really happy to be here again and talk about this. The site that I'm most interested in this conversation is about the Garden Creek site. So I've been researching this. It's called the Pisgah Shrine, or a ancestor shrine that's located in North Carolina, western North Carolina, near the Cherokee reservations and a place called Morning Star. And I have a slideshow as well as a lot of research that I've done. Recently, I was able to transcribe 780 pages of the letters that were written by A.J. Osborne way back in 1879 through 1886. He wrote in calligraphy and everything, but now with AI, it has the ability to transcribe automatically. So it's really revealed what he said based on these modern transcriptions being translated into English, and was able to use that to really extract a lot of really interesting information. And I'll have that to share as well.
That is awesome with the transcribing, right? Sure. It's a lot of transcribing too. 780 pages. That is great.
Yeah, it's amazing. They kept these letters that he sent for all these years at the University of North Carolina. They're in the rare books collection. And so all these letters just were archived there. And they reveal a lot of really interesting information about what was found.
Awesome. Do you want to just give maybe people a little bit of an idea before we get into your stuff? Like, what is the deal? I guess, like, how did you stumble across this Mount Pisgah scenario and all this stuff here?
Well, I started working as a volunteer on the weekend, just as a hobby. I volunteered at Cahokia Mountains in Illinois from around 2003 to 2008. And at the museum, when I was volunteering, I was researching about the symbolism and the culture of the Native Americans. And they had a lot of figurines that were found there in Illinois that had cross hatching on them. So I did some research and found out that, well, there's a whole bunch of more of those in North Carolina, and they all have a lot of similarities to the ones at Cahokia Mountains in Illinois. And so from that point on, I went and dug into this to try to really, it's like my rabbit hole, just getting in and just trying to find as much as I could about this. And come to find out, there's 2,000 of these figurines that are authentic ancient carvings that were compiled together in an ancestor shrine inside of an earth lodge. And the earth lodge had been burnt down multiple times, and they had just been dug up back in the 1880s. And then there was a big excavation by the Valentine Museum. After the Civil War, the Valentine Museum came in and they started collecting these and trying to record evidence of where they're from and what they're all about. And they have symbolism that is really unique and important, and it resembles a lot of the Cahokia Mountains figurines.
Sounds wild. Do you ever think you'd end up finding yourself here?
No, I'm glad to be here talking with you about.
No, I'm not saying on the Occult Rejects. I'm sorry, I'm not that guy for myself. Do you ever think you'd find yourself like in this situation now, this scenario where you're like going down rabbit holes, deciphering shit? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I mean, it is like an occult thing. I mean, the shrine of the Cherokee were a clan, basically. I mean, the Cherokee existed before them. You know, there's evidence of cultures going back 10,000 years. So this is like a lost culture, a lost clan, and the rejection of the figurines was based on their controversial nature, because a lot of the scientists from the Smithsonian came down there and they started saying, "Oh, these can't be real. These are modern. They're like manufacturing these like a manufacturing line or something to try to sell them." But there's strong evidence that they're not all fakes or modern. They're actually ancient and authentic. And so there's a lot of controversy that stem from the rejection of these artifacts that the Smithsonian had in 1883. They showed up and they said, "No, these are all fake," or they said they're great humbugs. You know, great as humbug. They said, like Ebenezer Scrooge, and they came on and they just rejected them, and they were basically then put in a storage locker for over 150 years, almost 150 years of not being on display, nobody knowing anything about them. And so they're just, the University of North Carolina has them. They won't let people study them. The Smithsonian has them. They didn't even know about them because they forgot about them. And the Valentine Museum took them off display in 2009 after I asked about them and told them that, hey, this is an ancestor shrine from the Kofitachike and Cayuga, the village of Cayuga of the Cherokee. They're like, "Oh, well, I can't talk to you then." And they literally took them off display. But come to find out, NAGPRA, the Grave Protection, the Repatriation Act, they actually filed a official claim for these in 1999 for the artifacts. So they have a NAGPRA claim for the actual artifacts that were dug up, and they've repatriated some of these from University of North Carolina. And so with NAGPRA related artifacts, I mean, it authenticates them as a real culture. It's a real thing. I mean, they are definitely authentic ancient artifacts.
Did they carbon date these before they said they weren't real?
No, well, back then when they said they weren't real in 1883, they didn't have carbon dating. But there has been carbon dating done now that dates the mound itself to around 300 AD, and the artifacts are attributed to that time frame as well. There's also a fire that happened in 1543 that was radiocarbon dated that matches Hernando de Soto, and so his expedition went through there and burnt the place down. He documented finding this place called El Ku, which is the temple of ancestor shrine. It's basically the temple of idols that had all these ancestor idols in them. And Hernando de Soto was the conquistador that went through that area in 1543. And that signal of his being there was discovered by carbon dating.
Have you ever spoken to I think it's Jason Shaban from Alabama? Yeah. Doesn't he have a situation where he thinks he's some DeSoto stuff over by here?
He's really interested in the DeSoto as well, the expedition and everything.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure when I went to go see him in Alabama, there was stuff that he was he mentioned that whole situation. I think that's like part of his whole thing. Yeah, so when you said that, I remember hearing that name. Wow. Do you want me to bring up your slides?
Yes, that'd be great.
All right, here we go. So here's the first one. Mount Pisgah, Garden Creek.
So yeah, this is Haywood County site, and A.J. Osborne was the guy that excavated it along with the Valentine Museum. What I'll talk about is the Smithsonian letters, the chronology that they present, because each one is dated, when they wrote the letter, who they wrote it from and to, and also the University of North Carolina, the Haywood Site Index. I've cross-checked it with the Smithsonian artifacts, and the photos are shown here. So this is a real landscape. It has a contested corpus the artifacts, they were controversial. They have what I'll show: a motif comparison and ethical specimen level testing. And so this is the cross checks that I've done against Haywood County. This is saying that the University of North Carolina website has confirmed this as a site. This has been paired against these mounds: Mound 1, 2, 3, and 7, and 1, 2, 3, and 5, and that has been corroborated. Then there's ancient North Carolina website talking about the site. That's an anchor for the site. Basically, it confirms the dating and the Pisgah phase of the mounds and Canesti phase. This is saying that Canesti phase is around 200 AD. Pisgah phase is around 1000 to 1400 AD. So these are real sites. They're carbon dated. And the marker test confirms that when they first excavated the site, 1880, they dug it up again, 1915, and then 1965 to 67, they had research digging up the site. This was preserving the 19th century accusation of fake artifact that basically they said these were hoaxes or something that were manufactured, but they're not. I mean, we'll see why. And the next slide is the core verdict cross-check. So the site's real at Garden Creek and Mount Pisgah, and the unresolved corpus is the saying whether it's a blanket fake or an authentic site completely. The correct method is to do an object by object test, determine provenance, material, phase, repair history, residues, microscopy, non-destructive testing. So the evidence weighted reading is strongest at system level, repeated animals, human figurines, vessels, pipes, boats, cross-hatching, heat-related media, and mortuary objects. The weakest is where we're not sure about the term El-Ku at Kofidicheke, because those haven't been scientifically confirmed. But there's pearls, Jodomeg clans, and the Osborne-Smithsonian controversy is strong. So these the result is we'll show the new files in this packet. Will the different symbols with the idols showing how many of each one there are. We'll look at the technical testing and material and determine about the path forward. And so what we have here is there's in the letters, there were 288 letters written by Osborne and 26 by the Smithsonian. So these letters back and forth that were written, all of these artifacts are at the Valentine Museum, the Smithsonian, and University of North Carolina. So there's 943 artifacts. There's 35 artifacts that have disappeared, but they used to be cataloged, and they're no longer there. So in other words, somebody stole them. You know, they walked off with them. They're no longer in the collection.
Do you think they've been sold off? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's clear that they're no longer there, and they used to be. So they've either been sold or taken.
Yeah, that's proof right there that this shit just disappears.
Yeah.
No matter how you want to frame the disappearing, it's still disappearing.
Right. It's not there. And
there's a quick question in the chat for you.
Yes.
Oh. When did the Cherokee get to North Carolina? Do you know estimated?
1730, approximately.
Oh, okay.
Before that, it was not considered Cherokee. Before that, the Muskogee lived there, and Creek, and Yuchi. But there's evidence that Cherokee they came in later in the 1730s, because that one of the earliest written words for Cherokee was back in 1540, which was Chalake, but I guess the land didn't officially become Cherokee until they kind of stayed on site in the 1730s, and they lived there until 1830s. So it was only about 100 years before, and then they had the Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears was when the tribes were forcibly removed by the U.S. government orders, but that's what I know about it.
Very nice, man.
And
you know that date right off the top of your head.
So the hinge date April 25th, 1883 was the hinge date for the site, because that's when the Smithsonian showed up. And you see, they started excavating the site in 1879, 1880, and then they kept on digging. They found all these mounds, graveyards, river washes, stone boxes. They found all these artifacts, pipes, bowls, beads, axes. These people were digging all over the site, and they covered like 15 square miles of area, and they dug up a lot of different sites all over the area. And then Rao and Nature had a critique in 1882, and they came on site. They sent Emmert in 1883, and they made up a story that these were manufactured specimens and they made up vouchers, and the money trail is questionable. So this was Emmert, and he had done this on orders from the Smithsonian, and so he has conflicted stories or different stories that he told when he got there. Like one of the stories, he said Valentine had these buried for others to dig up. So basically he's accusing Valentine of planting these artifacts. And then another story he said was that Valentine had people immerse them in running water to make them look ancient. And their steatite, it takes heat to make them look like they do with the reddish color. So it's not water, it's heat. So he had got confused about the geology and made this story up. And then later on they asked him, well, why do you do this? Who told you this? And he said, oh, I'm not telling you who told me. He withheld their names. He had secrecy and bad faith enters the record. So he really, he basically got fired after that. After he told them, I'm not telling you who said this, he goes fired from the Smithsonian. Emmert literally got let go and discharged because of this. And so the next slide is the site. Okay, the site has these different mounds: 1, 2, 3, and 5. And these are the Garden Creek mounds. It's located by the Pigeon River, and there's the Twin Earth Lodge, which is Mound 1. Mound 2 down here is near Huggy Bear Hill Road. And then there's the Mound 3 over here and Mound 5. And as we'll see later, these are actual archaeological sites now. These are the site numbers, and they're confirmed. Garden Creek is south of Camden at the confluence of the Garden Creek and Pigeon River. It's shown here on the map where Camden is up here, Camden, North Carolina. And then it's located right down here by the Pigeon River. The site has been excavated, and this is where it shows the twin earth lodges that were found. It has evidence of a subterranean earth lodge with multiple compartments or architectural earthworks that were built there with subterranean lodges. So this was underground. They were living in a hole in the ground, basically, and they made this subterranean lodge with a fire, and they even equipped it with ventilation so the air could come in from one side and go to the other. And they had like underground tunnels for air to come in and out to sweep out the carbon monoxide from the fire. So it was really amazing technological achievement that they were able to do that. And then, okay, so the convergence date, April 25th, 1883. This is when the Smithsonian shows up with Emmert. And this is a hinge date, not a final verdict. So when the Smithsonian sent Emmert, this was the window for the real site when they had the mound burial reporting, and the Smithsonian sent Emmert to report manufactured comparison stream. And that makes the fraud narrative contested and not conclusive, because what happened was when he came on site and said that these are all manufactured artifacts, well, they actually rejected that immediately. On April 25th, it's a chronological problem for a simple hoax verdict, because it joins the public mound evidence made for comparison purposes, the receipt and voucher, timing, and Valentine's immediate rebuttal. So what happened was Emmert's produced a receipt, and then the same day as they dug up this mound, a letter appeared in the local newspaper saying, hey, they found a great archaeological site. And then Emmert said he bought all these artifacts and claimed Valentine planted them there. And it's just, there's no way that could have happened. And so he was, so the contested status is that it doesn't prove that they're all ancient or all fake, but there's a strong consensus that, well, Emmert really was not correct. He was basically making this up. And the artifacts included copper, there's stone coffins, burials and skulls, paint and pigment. There's idols that were described, images and figurines. The things that are still questioned, that are not scientifically accepted, are the ones in red. Whether this is, in fact, Kofitacheke, there's shells, whether they were describing pearls or wampum, that's a question. There's good evidence that they were, in fact, wampum. And they found 28 wampum belts in the University of North Carolina from the site, that the University of North Carolina dug up the site, and they collected 28 wampum belts. And they have those that had been repatriated. And whether the Dodomag claim vocabulary is something that the Smithsonian hasn't used. They've never even noticed that these are clan symbols. They've never correlated that. So all these figurines that correlate to the clans, they never even noticed it or said it one time before. And so it's kind of interesting that hasn't been scientifically validated. And embalmed bodies, well, there were stone coffins, and the DeSoto Chronicles described embalmed bodies in the mound from the site. But so the artifact collection that was found, this is a description of the quantity. The first 1882 count said 2,000 artifacts were found. In 1950, the museum described 1,500 artifacts. The letters that I translated described 1,225 to 1,287 artifacts. Now the museum only has 943 remaining. So it shows, like, where did these all go? I mean, they've been decreasing quantity all through the years. I mean, people are apparently walking off with them or selling them. And some of them have showed up in auctions. If you look online, you can search for Mount Pisgah artifacts, and you can see auction records where they're selling them. They sell for $1,000 or more each. And so, I mean, they're really getting taken and sold on the market, just after, through the years that they've been taken. Okay, and then so the visual class distribution, the animal figurines are the 375 of those. There's 260 vessels or pottery containers. There's 135 human and animal figurines. There's 76 other figurines. There's 54 pipes, 43 fragments or ornaments and tools. So this is just showing the quantity here. It's just a vast quantity. This is more than any other site in the country. So it's like the other sites might have one or two. Well, this has 1,500, 2,000 originally. This is a major site. It's probably one of the most important, or the most important site in the country with this type of evidence. Here's some pictures of what they look like. So there's animals that look like bears. There's pallets. There's pentagonal pallets. There's like boat effigies that are crosshatched. There's perforated round discs, axes, stone axes, pottery bowls. They even had quartz bowls and blue clay bowls. There's all kinds of figurines and cups, paint cups and banner stones. There's a lot of banner stones involved. Banner stones are an archaic art object. So that's like from 8,000 to 4,000 BC timeframe during the Copper era. So those are ancient. And the importance of these is that they're all unique. I mean, they're and the camel. I mean, can you imagine finding a camel artifact in North America? Well, they don't exist anymore, but they used to during the Ice Age. And there were camels in North Carolina during the Ice Age, but how did they make a figurine of one that was found there? And so it correlates either with the Ice Age or, camels from the Middle East, where they had possibly seen one and known what it looked like or heard what it looked like somehow, and then made a figurine of one.
Yeah, that is actually a real interesting situation with that.
And so cross-checking these in the Dodomag, well, the Dodom is the clan motif. So they had family symbols. And what we found is of the family symbols, they correlate with the Muskogee, the Yuchi, and the Cherokee the most strongly. So all these in green here, the birds, bears, and things, they all have clan symbols that correlate. And there's a 95% correlation to the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe. There's about a 90% correlation to the Muskogee, and an 85% correlation to the Yuchi, and an 83% correlation to the Cherokee clan symbols between the Mount Pisgah and those tribes' clan symbols. So it's a very strong correlation. The motif strengthens the shrine grammar hypothesis. It does not replace the material analysis, but it supports the fact that, or the possibility that these are shrines, these are like clan symbols in the shrine, that each one represents their family symbol. And so there's 98 bears, 43 birds or ducks, 14 wolves, 10 bisons, 10 turtles, 6 aquatic animals, and numerous human portrait or picture categories. And it does not create a direct Smithsonian wording. The issue is that the Smithsonian hasn't ever acknowledged the word clan, Dotem, or Anishinaabe marker in their study of the site. So they haven't acknowledged that it's a clan shrine. And so this is just a comparison at this point. And the artifact types, well, they have a lot of other non-animal types, like there's vessels, figural images, pipes, perforated cooking objects. There's tools, arrowheads, copper, and shell. And diagnostic artifacts are things like ashes, soot, burned remains, wood traces, skulls and skeletons, burial basins. They even had stone coffins that they found. And so these artifacts are important too, because it shows that it wasn't just figurines of animals, but a lot of actual functional objects like cooking stones. Well, they would perforate a steatite object and they heat it up, and then they put it in their food or water to boil it and heat it up, and they use it for cooking. And the similar thing happened in Savannah River, Georgia, and at Poverty Point, Louisiana. So it was a custom to use these cooking stones to cook their food. And there were many sites found with cooking stones that were perforated, made of steatite, other than Mount Pisgah, but they collaborate or they correlate with this site because that's what Mount Pisgah had many examples of these cooking stones as well. And the material science testing that we did was thermoluminescence testing, because the goal there was to try to find out how old these were. And thermoluminescence was a possibility on the pottery objects to determine the age. And so it turned out that it wasn't successful in determining an age, because the issue is these had been refired and they had lost their quartz content. And also there's questions about the pottery. The carving date is determined by pottery, and they might not have been pottery. It might have been steatite or soapstone, another material. The Valentine Museum identified their pottery based on just feeling and looking at them, but they didn't do any material testing. So we asked them, hey, can you verify their pottery? And they said, we think they're pottery, so this will work, but they may have been steatite, which can't be tested with thermoluminescence. So the goal is, the material rule is we need to confirm the material phase first, whether it's steatite or soapstone or pottery, and then determine if it's enstatite or fired steatite. Because see what happens when they take steatite and they heat it up, it becomes red color. And a lot of the artifacts are red color like that. So it becomes enstatite. It changes from steatite to enstatite because the water evaporates or goes out of the molecules, and it changes the chemical structure, and it makes it a lot harder material. and surface staining, and their repair. Also, there's issues that the Valentine Museum had repaired a lot of these from fragments. So they used glue, and they basically glued them back together, and they just repaired them. And so that all needs to be mapped out before they test them, determine, well, which ones were repaired, which ones weren't, where's the testing coming from? So then there's Wells Mound skull. This skull was in the Mount Pisgah photo album, which was at the Valentine Museum, and it's apparently broken or in pieces and just shattered. This skull was found on the site, and they believe it was from Mound 5, based on the record of being in Wells Mound. And it was a person sitting up in a pot, like in a vertical sitting stature. And so they found the skull and they took it. And the skeleton was described with the head upright. The skull was sent out for photography, and then the exact spot remains provisional. Is believed to be in the Pigeon River Mount Pisgah site, because he has written on there Wells Mound on it. The site turned out, well, this skull had been evaluated scientifically, and it turns out that it's a male, about 45 years old, and they believe he died from dental infection, because the lower jaw is like missing parts of it that would have resulted in a dental infection. And this damaging and battering, well, it could be from, they believe it was post-mortem damages. So somebody busted the skull after he'd been dead for a long time and broke it apart. And it's possible that it was during the time when DeSoto showed up, he documented shooting the mound up with his Arbicus 65 caliber gun, basically shot into the mound and penetrated the walls of the mound. And he did this to desecrate it. It was basically an effort to desecrate the burials.
Yeah.
And so the next thing, the Kennedy fragment is El-Ku, and he described this on the site of Kofi Cheke, an idol where they had all these pearls at the neck and work copper sheets and idols, basically all the idol. This is called House of Idol. And there's good evidence that Garvin Creek is the House of Idol, because it has all these idols or figurines in it that represent their clan symbols. This is, it matches a lot of the characteristics or things that were described in the DeSoto Chronicles. Garden Creek was evaluated against the Kennedy Shrine pattern, not only against the route geography, because what happened is the people believe that DeSoto took a route and went through South Carolina. But it turns out in South Carolina, there's no idol found. There's never been a temple found. They didn't find any evidence of this description of what is shown in the DeSoto Chronicles. So now that we have this, and there's evidence that DeSoto, in fact, did go up to North Carolina, this is a good candidate for the shrine called El-Ku, the House of the Idol. And instead of being in South Carolina, where they never found any House of Idol, this is the most likely candidate for it. And so the evidence is all the idols, or the images that we saw. There's 987 remaining. There's figurines of all types. There's pearl beads like shell beads and wampum, work copper, mortuary containers. The strongest overlap is the coffins that were found and described, and the fire and soot that was described. So all these things that were described in the DeSoto Chronicles for El-Ku match what's seen there at the North Carolina site.
Just a question that I have. I'm wondering, it may not really make a difference. Did you look into maybe where they're on I guess maybe the map of how did they say North Carolina and South Carolina? Are they going by today's measurements of where the states are? Or are they going by where it was back then? It could have been actually different.
Yeah, those states didn't even exist back then. So they were just estimating based on what they called varas, or distance. They were measuring it from the sea and trying to ballpark the location based on his chronicles. They didn't, they didn't have GPS back then, so they didn't really know where they were going.
Yeah, like I was even saying before, Greenville, South Carolina is actually closer to it than Greenville, North Carolina. Like South Carolina really isn't too far away from this site. So I mean, you're not too far off, really.
And the word Cayuga, well, there's another village in South Carolina called Cayuga as well. So it's interesting that there's North Carolina and South Carolina both have matching village names, and they might just have been confused because they assumed it was South Carolina they went through instead of North Carolina. But it turned out now the evidence points to going through North Carolina to this site.
That's pretty cool. And
then the regional candidate model. This is a analysis that I did to try to determine what other sites are there locally. There's South Carolina the sites are called Watery, Camden, Mulberry, Adamson. That's where they believe he went through in South Carolina, going through Kofit and Cheke. That's because of the route through South Carolina. So they assume that it might be at these sites. And then Garden Creek has the strongest material correlation. Jowara, Berry site, well, DeSoto made it there, and he recorded going to North Carolina, and then Pardo and Fort San Juan were there. But so it's plausible that the Paramount Chieftain sphere actually extended all the way up to North Carolina, and the Garden Creek site was the northern outpost with El Coup. And so the anti-authenticity claims of these were mostly from the Smithsonian. They started driving this back in 1883. They tried to dismiss it. The strongest claim was stream specific. They said these were manufactured, but it does not prove the mountain was fake or every object was manufactured. But these are some of the things that they said about the authenticity. And they critiqued there was guns, coffee pots, chairs, metal tool appearance on the artifacts. Like they said, these are not things that you'd find. But in fact, that the site was occupied by people that had guns and coffee pots, and so they could have easily made them. So the Cherokee, when they lived there up until 1830. So they very well could have carved a gun or a coffee pot or a chair, and they could have used metal tools. And in fact, there were knives made of metal found in the mound. So I think this being a continuously occupied site, that kind of rules out this one. And then the Baird institutional inquiry, they said this was basically the Smithsonian came in and they said these couldn't be real because they're different. They're different than anything else that were found. And so they rejected it. And there's actually, out of the 2,000 artifacts originally, there were only 28 attributed to this effort by the Smithsonian and Emmert. They came on site. He says he had 28 specimens made. And he was saying, well, because I could have, since I could have had these made, then all the others must be not real either. So, but there's evidence that in fact, the ones that he had said he made, he just purchased from somebody. So like the site, there's so many that he might have just purchased a collection from somebody that already had these, and they might have been authentic, but he purchased them, and said he had them made. So that's really questionable on John Emmert.
Yeah, I think that whole phrase even just sounds weird.
And then the next slide, was this an institutional disagreement or a policy dispute? Well, these museums were basically competing for funding, and the Valentine Museum was privately funded. The Smithsonian was federally funded. So Valentine said the disagreement was institutionally based. Washington had the authority, the government backed collecting and anonymous informants. Museum reputation, the control of discovery was shaped by this narrative that they published about being an accusation. Political climate also formed a background because this was during the time of Cherokee removal and the Native American religious suppression rules and laws were just published 10 days before this event when they showed up at the site. I mean, they instated a law that prohibited natives from practicing their religion. And this site was then attacked 10 days later. And so the goal here is to just show that that this is just an institutional bias and not proof of authenticity, that they need to be reconsidered. The scientific testing plan would be chronological caution. There's a 411-year carbon date correlating with DeSoto. This is at the upper fill of the mound. This needs to be collaborated and result in further study. There's also a first build catalog in place. All these catalogs that they have of the artifacts, they need to check it for lead and metal. Those bullets, they could test the bullets that were found in the mound. They could test the material for the chemical composition to determine if it's in statite or actually just steatite or pottery. And they could do non-destructive testing to do that. And the combined catalog and all of the letters that were written are now available that document the importance of this find. So the next step is not more argument. It's just that it needs to be there needs to be concordance and work done to prove out what these are from a scientific standpoint. And so the final cross-check synthesis is that this has been proven as a real site. Mound 1, 2, and 3 supported. It's Cayuga, which is the Cherokee village that was from 1730 to 1830. So that became the site later after Elku. Later after that, it was identified as HW 1, 2, 3, and 5 in Valentine correspondence. It changed its name from Mount Pisgah to Garden Creek site. So the site changes its name all the time. And we now know that this is a real site. The things that are not proven yet would need to be determined and scientifically validated that this is Elku from the expedition of DeSoto. Also, that's strongly supported is that this is a clan symbol. These are actual clan symbols from the mound that correlate to the Anishinaabe, Yuchi, Cherokee, and Muskogee clans. And that's the last slide.
It's interesting, all those like clan things together. I know this is a question going back. It's so earlier that I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt. Did you ever was there anything that you ever came across that happened to mention what the pigments were made out of?
Yeah, red ochre. They're saying that a lot of these could be red ochre pigments, and that's a symbol. That's a type of pigment that was used during the Archaic period and Woodland period. If you want to, I can just share my screen and show some more examples.
Yeah, sure. Pull it back up again. Oh, it's the same stuff, I think, down there. Yeah, it just made me. I just was interested. I was like, I wonder if they tested the pigment to see what it was made out of.
Yeah, there's a lot of red ochre and charcoal. This picture here shows the figurines. Some of the slabs, in particular, there's horses. And these are all just artistically created, very covered with cross hatching and artistic work. There's plaques with horses and bears. This looks like a stela, human effigy with the dress on, with cross hatching. And some geese are, just incredible line work. And a lot of the bears have the cross hatching and line work as well. Just incredible zoomorphic effigies. There's turtle effigies, all kinds of birds.
Yeah, these are really nice, actually. I think.
Yeah, they're incredible. There's so many. Have some more I could show. Second.
So, what, in your opinion, how old do you think? Oh, before we even get to that, I'm pretty sure you've mentioned it, but like specifically, do you know, like, is there like stuff found in the mounds around it? I mean, I know you mentioned a few things, but do you know offhand if there was like other specific stuff like found within the mounds?
Yeah, the mounds had a lot of artifacts found all around the site, and there were many many adjacent villages too. I mean, this whole area became later known as the Pisgah area, and it's like a time zone. Pisgah became an archaeological phase. So the Cherokee area correlated well with the Pisgah area, but there were multiple sites found all over that area, not just this one.
Also, like when they found like I guess it was like even those clan things, or when you started finding different. Oh, not you, but when they found the, I guess, artifacts that belonged to different tribes, were they always found separately or mixed in with other stuff?
Well, they were mixed together. There was a lot of variety.
All right.
These were reported from many different sites, like over 10 square miles of area. And well, what I've got here is another slideshow kind of showing the artifacts, and some of them have camels. Like this is the kind of depiction of the camels. There was pentagonal shaped steatite that was perforated, and turtle effigies, crosshatch boats. I mean, these were found all over the place. There were figurines, there were serpent figurines, there were crosshatch, snakes, all kinds of things that were found. And these correlate well with the Muskogee, Yuchi, Cherokee, Anishinaabe, and Osage tribes. Their clans were matching these very strongly. And so these artifacts were found, and it's a NAGPRA site now. They've used the term, I mean, we use the term shrine for describing it because the ancestor shrine is where they collected or brought together all these animal vessels and figurines, pipes, boats, crosshatched interiors. It was in this mound one. And totemism and clan structure was an analogy. Basically, they used animism. Well, that's the theory or the belief that everything has like a spirit and it's alive. Like it has. And this was noted by Columbus even when he first showed up. He said these people are like India. They believe in animism, and that's what happened in India too. They believed everything was animated or alive, and it had a spirit. But the time frame goes back into the Middle Woodland. There's even early archaic evidence. And so they found arrowheads and all these artifacts that go way back into around 8,000 BC timeframe. And the site was continuously occupied from 8,000 BC all the way up to European occupation. And, so for some reason, this site was really important. And there's a good reason that it correlates with a lunar site. It's near the place called Morning Star. So it's a lunar village there that correlated well with being an important site for many millennia. And the provenance is amazing how the Smithsonian came in and they had this institutional conflict. The artifacts were glued together with white glue, Zapon-like coating, and repair. So a lot of them had been broken apart and they just glued them back together and they kind of tried to rework them. And the chronology, in order to determine the age date of something, it would have to be either radiocarbon dated or thermoluminescence. We tried thermoluminescence, but because of the fact they had been glued together and reheated, that zeroed the age date. Basically, it didn't give us the actual last firing date because they were refired at some point after they were initially fired. And so there's a lot of strong correlation with the Muskogee Creek, the Yuchi, Cherokee, and Anishinaabe and the Osage tribe. They all have these type of symbols that correlate, and they match. They even use vessels, bowls, and cups as major holding systems. There's a lot of other pipes, vessels, crosshatch symbols that were found, and the highest animals and figurines correlate with their tribal symbols of their clans and families.
I do have a question about the site itself. I know the research has been very sloppy from the beginning that it's been discovered, but have they discovered the purpose of the site where so many clans meet? Was it like a central trading place? Because these tribes, from what I understand, are very nomadic, so they were constantly moving. So was this like a central point for all tribes in that area, or on North America, I should say?
Yeah, and that's a good question. There was a lot of evidence that the site had been just continuously occupied because of its location, and you see here it's in a flat spot that's surrounded by mountains. On this picture, you can kind of tell that the reason they said it was such a great spot is because animals migrated through there a lot, and that's where the animals kind of collected because the mountains were too steep to walk on, and the herds would go there through all the time, and they just ended up there.
That actually makes sense as an abundance of food.
Yeah, right. So the food and the animal herding, just like they might have just ended up there just because of the geography. And that might be why, because it was basically surrounded by mountains and this big flat area where all the animals were just normally collecting from migrations or herds that would end up there. And there's also, the clan symbols were attributed to many different phases. There's evidence that they tie to the Siop culture in Ohio, Athena. There's woodland symbols. I mean, a lot of this, what we were finding, and you see, there's even archaic connections with Poverty Point site in Louisiana, and the Savannah River site. All the heating elements that they use to make water boil and cook food were found there in this mound. So the clan symbols, and the figurines and axes and things all really correlate to just being a good location for a village that was there. And there's also the lunar connection. Well, there's a lot of lunar shaped banner stones, and this might be an important astronomical site, like to archaeoastronomy. For some reason, that they have this village called Morningstar just nearby there. Morningstar was a legend or a mythical place that was very important in many tribes. So it was important to the tribes in North Carolina, and as well as New York and even Alberta. They all had Morningstar myths and legends, and so there's a possibility that this site has a relationship to those myths and legends, and they came here to to worship or to practice their religion.
I had started thinking that, because that was a great question, Judith, because I was just trying to figure out, like, it seems like, maybe they were intermingling, like you said, and like, but for what reason or what purpose? Maybe it was like, commerce or trading. And I'm trying to think, I'm like, well, it's not really close to the water, which doesn't mean that wouldn't happen still. But then I started thinking about the mounds, and those do pop up sometimes, like kind of in like areas where there'd be like worship or religious ideas. And I started wondering, maybe then the morning star, because you're talking about moon stuff, and I'm thinking morning star could even go back to like Venus. So I was just like, maybe this is like some sort of area for, not so much ritual, but maybe some sort of spiritual pilgrimage, maybe even. for some people.
Yeah, and
all these groups actually came together for some reason. Maybe they all thought that area had some power.
And the place names kind of correlate well with that too. It used to be called the village of Cayuga when the Cherokee lived there. Cayuga, researching that, it means a village, a place where they had it was a meeting place of many people. And there's another reason, another translation of Cayuga was the combed village, and they basically would have the ball game or practice the green corn ceremony, and they would comb their hair or comb their friend's hair and watch the ball game. So these figurines were crosshatched or combed as well. So basically the lines on them were incised or inscribed like being combed effigies, like that they were living creatures. And then before that, Kofitacheke was the same name, but it means a meeting place of many people as well. And so it was Kofitacheke was a leader that the name connects really well and kind of resonates that both of the names mean a meeting place for many people and reference multicultural connections, and there's many different people coming together there.
Actually, someone in the chat, Eris, I may say that wrong, had a question. Could it be possible the mountains were used for astronomical observation before it got its name as the shrine?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, the mound itself was an earth lodge, and in the earth lodge, there was an opening at the top for light to come in, and they would make observations. It was aligned north and south. So the structure was actually built north and south in orientation. So it was planned like that. And so there's good evidence that the reason why is an astronomical alignment. And they would have used it for making astronomy observations as well as predicting the seasons and planning the events.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. There's even been stuff that I've covered on the show where seems with like Native American or oh God, what am I thinking of? Like in Mexico and areas around there. A lot of like older sites with the mountains, that was like a common thing that sometimes they would have. It almost seemed like it had it going by like some of the, I guess, like the history of the way that they looked at stuff that was available, I guess, to like kind of, you know, get an idea from. It seemed to be like almost like a belief or a structure that, but some people were also saying they thought it was tied with astrology, but they did have this idea of like what they were trying to get at with like life coming out of the mountain as well. Like there was like this thought behind why they even and with mounds, they built into mounds to like almost kind of show like life coming out of the ground. So like that is kind of a common thing for some of those, but there has been sites where people have also thought, like she said in the chat, that those mountains were tied to astrology.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, one of the interesting things, these artifacts, they're made of steatite, and they heated it up. And it was when it was heated up, it becomes instatite. Well, meteorites are also made from instatite, and meteorites were associated with artifacts from the Hopewell as well. They would actually make meteoric iron artifacts, and they found a lot of them in mounds. So meteorites themselves were attributed to, you know, the upper world. And then so the fact that they had these artifacts made of the same material that meteorites are made of in an earth lodge kind of joins the upper world with the lower world, and it becomes a whole cultural object where they would look at the stars through the opening in the top of the mountain and track the seasons, as well as they use the light from the moon or the sun to shine into the mound and illuminate what time of year it was and track the seasons and stars as they moved.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting with that type of stuff? Like you go over to like the Middle East or over like in Egypt, and you always get kind of the idea that you have to walk upstairs to get into like this type of thing. And over here, you're walking upstairs to get outside, technically. Like you're starting down from the bottom and working your way up. And Over there, you're walking. It's kind of like it's a different approach. What I'm getting at, tell you the
Right.
truth. The way you're visualizing it, and even the way you're doing it, I think even plays differently in your head when you're going through like an initiation type thing, if that's what it is as well.
Right, and there was in the DeSoto Chronicles, they described this ancestor shrine as being 7 layers high, covered with these figurines, and they also had descriptions of the figurines wrapped in pearls and fur, and basically, so they would take animal skins or furs and they would wrap them, and they'd wrap pearls around them, like the southwestern tribes do on effigies sometimes. But they found that all of these figurines that were wrapped in furs and pearls, well, when they burnt it down, basically those all burned off, and what was left was these figurines made of stone. But going up from basically when they went up from the 7 layers of the figurines, they had to ascend up a ladder. Basically, they would have to climb a ladder to get up out of the mound, through the top of the hole into the landscape.
I'm glad you mentioned the pearls. I was waiting to ask that question about the pearls, because I think it was slide maybe 12 or 13. There was a little blurb there that said they had 12 horses, carts of pearls that they retrieved.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, okay, conspiracy hat on, silver hat, aluminum foil hat on right now. I was wondering if that's why there was such a pushback on the legitimacy of the site, because technically they basically stole that, if that was true. And that's a lot of pearls.
Yeah, exactly. DeSoto came in and basically stole it and burnt it down. And so it was a site that had been destroyed already by conquistadors. And when he ransacked it and burnt it down, he desecrated it. And then, so when archaeologists come on site, they're not finding a site that was normally occupied. They're finding a burnt down, desecrated, destroyed site. And the things that were there that were valuable were taken, like these 12 horseloads of pearls. But they found a lot of other things that were left behind, like the copper, charcoal, soot. They found wampum, 28 wampum belts. All the stone coffins were left behind. They found a lot of architecture that just matched. And so, yeah, the pearls are amazing. The fact that they had so many of them. And DeSoto, after he left, he felt a lot of sadness about destroying the site, and described that as well in his journal.
Now, I'm curious, because prior to us going live, we were talking about the different mounds throughout the country that associates with these particular tribes. And I'm wondering if, because those are newfound finds for us within history. I'm like talking about within the 20th century, the one in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure about the one in South Carolina and Louisiana. And I think, Nick, you mentioned another location too. I think Tennessee is where you mentioned that they have those mounds there. And I'm wondering if after this particular site was destroyed, they fanned out and they created these other mounds and kept them a secret, because those weren't recently discovered. Those were recently discovered. It wasn't discovered back then.
Right. That's true. And there's good evidence that that's true, that they took a lot of the natives that lived there, then took their culture and went elsewhere with it. And they took some of the artifacts as well. In the Creek Journal of 1700, well, they described these as casita, the casitas culture. And they basically they took them with them, and they've been found. These type of figurines, the same type of figurines have been found in Tennessee, Mississippi, even Louisiana, Georgia, a lot of different places that they resemble the figurines from El Coup, and they may have just taken them with them and brought them to the other sites as well.
I find it suspicious when artifacts disappear.
Oh yeah, Of course.
Yeah.
I find that interesting that I guess maybe they didn't understand the worth of copper yet. I'm surprised that didn't get swiped.
Yeah, the copper. I mean, they said they found these copper sheets and worked copper, and they well to the natives, copper was very valuable, but the soda was just after gold. That's all he wanted. He was after gold and basically didn't consider anything else to be valuable.
As you were talking about the conquistadors, I was thinking their reputation is not all that great, because even from South America all the way up to North America, all they were doing was slaughtering and basically stealing the valuables.
Yes, absolutely. It was horrific and terrible what he did, and that he documented this in his chronicles. It's a horrific time period. But the thing is that he was doing this. He was going around from one village to the next, just burning it down and then taking the stuff and burning it down. I mean, the same thing happened here. And I think he was going after this site because of its religious importance.
I'm curious, has anyone ever spoken to the descendants of those tribes? Because I know to this day they still transfer history by word of mouth, that they could probably give a better insight of what the site really was.
Yeah, the Kofitacheke, I mean, the village of Kofitacheke, the tribes still have that legend that is, passed down. And I mean, they still have all the clan symbols. The Muskogee have thanked me for doing this. The chief reached out to me and said, thank you. They've acknowledged the importance of the study, and they're strongly supportive of preserving it. And repatriation is still going on. Some of those figurines were repatriated as recently as last year to the Muskogee. And the ones that were found in Georgia have now been repatriated. And the Yuchi tribes as well. I mean, these tribes are, still very interested in the history and learning about this and preserving the past and the knowledge of it.
That's good to know.
So what do you think is going on here? Like, after all this, like with all the stuff that you looked at, what's your theories, ideas, or opinion? Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be correct. It's like, whatever you got going on in that head.
You're talking to me? You're asking me?
Yeah. What do you think? Yeah, like how, like, what do you think, like, was actually going on over there? What do you think, like, all that?
Well, I think it was an ancestor shrine. I mean, that this had been a sacred shrine for years, for millennia, going back until even the Ice Age. And that this was where they accumulated all their ancestor shrine and totems, or a totemag. And the reason why is it was a place of worship, and it was a sacred place. And these all just were accumulated there like a shrine for many, many years, many thousands of years, and just, accumulated there. And I think the reason why that they haven't been studied more is because political motives from the Smithsonian blocked it. And it needs to be studied and preserved, and not just thrown in a storage locker somewhere. I think it should be repatriated and honored, for what it is, an ancestor shrine.
Do you think it's a lot older than what's being said?
I mean, I think it goes back to the Ice Age and continuously was added to, like every culture that lived there added to it, and they didn't take away from it. I think they just accumulated more and more things as they went along.
You mentioned Ice Age, and while you were saying it earlier, I had to stop myself from asking, camels during the Ice Age, what we may not know, but what do you think it was like a desert area, or is it back then camels could take the cold?
Well, I don't know that. I'm not sure, but just the figurine of a camel is one of the really interesting ones. And well, I think I have started out. This slide has a picture of it, or this show there. So the camel, it literally has two humps and the cross hatching all over it. And well, one of the reasons is that it's a pack animal. It was great for crossing distances, and possibly it was brought over on a boat. I mean, maybe they were traveling on boats like I show here. I mean, all these different routes they could get there, and they could bring it with them. And at any given time in history, it may have made its way over there somehow with the people that brought it. And well, there's other symbols that relate to myrrh, like the religious fragrance that they would make from resin. Excuse me. And it was similar area or vicinity that to the camel region. So there's symbols of the myrrh tree found on these figurines. Myrrh tree, there's legend that the myrrh tree gave birth to the hog or wild boar. And then from that, at that time, basically that was around Christmas time. So they would have attribute the fragrance burning from the resin that the myrrh tree had with Christmas time. And that was something that the tribes in the Middle East did. And it lasted up until about 500 BC. So some of the figurines are, showing cultural parallels there. And whether they had the myrrh tree, I mean, they didn't have myrrh tree in North America, but they had the longleaf pine nearby there. So that might have been one of the reasons that they came there, was to get the resin from the longleaf pine to make the fragrance that they would burn around Christmas time.
I also have another, and maybe I'm off on this, but when we were young and we went through history, we were always taught that when they accidentally fell on the Americas, they thought they were going to India. Yeah. And if you were going to trade in India back then, those are the things you probably would have. You would have the camels to carry your merchandise. You would have the myrrh to trade. I don't know how much of a value it was back then. So could it be that these items accidentally got here because they ended up in the wrong place?
Yeah, absolutely. That's possible too. When the traders came over, they thought it was going to India, and they may have just landed in North America. And like Columbus said, it was Indians because they were thinking they landed in India, but in fact they landed in North America. And one of the first maps of North America referred to a humped animal being located in the North Carolina area. And humped animal, well, could it be a camel or would it be a bison? It's hard to say, but the fact that it had humped animal written on the map right where North Carolina was is a pretty good indication that they once lived there. And you're right, it could well have been from trade or getting lost or just ending up there by accident.
Depending on how far back with the myrrh, I mean, that was something that Egypt was pumping out like crazy at one point. And when, believe it or not, when Egypt was at its richest, it was being run by a female. And she knew what she was doing with the business. And she really did some crazy shit with the trading systems. And that was one of their top things. Like, they were getting rich off of selling that shit.
Well, yeah, and the Tanit figurine even shows up on site. So the Tanit was Northern Africa leader near Egypt and around 500 BC timeframe. And so that there's some figurines that correlate well also with Tanit from the site. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
The crosshatch boats. I mean, there's rectangular boats that are covered in crosshatching. One of the boats that was the best one, well, it disappeared from the collection. So someone took it. I mean, it's no longer in the collection. But the fact that they had actual figurines made like in the shape of canoes or boats that were covered in crosshatching is totally amazing. Shows that the travel importance was there.
There's a lot of different things coming together in this spot. I feel like it's very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the trade routes, this kind of shows the trade routes kind of come from all over the world, just converging there. And there's evidence these are figurines that correlate to the totems or clan symbols from those regions as well. So out of the 970, there's 9 of them that have clan symbols from these regions depicted on the map that show that they traveled, or they must have had these figurines coming from those areas as well, or at least known that the clan symbols existed over there.
We know that they come as far west as Ohio, that region, and as far north as Canada. They've come down there. How far southern tribes do you think may have moved up to there or had any communication? Because it seems like either their trade lines or there was something that had all these tribes that people originally thought were having their own societies and didn't intermingle too much, actually did mingle more than we realize.
Yeah, there was capybara figurines as well. Capybara is an animal and totem figurine from South America.
Oh, those things are awesome.
And so, yeah, South America is represented in the collection as a figurine of the capybara. And so there's evidence there, a strong connection there as well. And the fact that there's also Mexican type of clans, the monkey, there's a lot of monkeys that look like Mexican. There's jaguars, either the jaguars Ice Age or it comes from Central America or Mexico region. So a lot of the symbols and clans represent long distance trade or at least knowledge of these other clan symbols.
Yeah, when you said jaguars before, it made me think of like Apocalypto.
Yeah, that movie is amazing.
But no, like that type of stuff, like places like Mesoamerica and shit. Capybara, that's interesting. I love that animal. Do you know what that animal is, Judith?
Yeah, they're very cute. Very cute.
Yo, and like nothing fucks with them.
Would you?
Like, no, but like it even shows them. I don't know if it's alligators or crocodiles, or I'll screw that up. But like they'll like walk through them and they'll move out of the way for them. Won't even bother them. It's like just so unreal how like nothing really attacks those animals. Like they're so chill. They just like not even bother with that guy. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I wonder if I just find it interesting that animal you said that you found. I guess they have like carvings of.
Yeah, I mean the carvings of the jaguar, the capybara. There's even emu carvings. There's just an incredible variety of clan symbols shown, all through the world.
And largest rodent. Wow. Yeah, I saw on Instagram who had like 2 of them. Like they'd come in the house and everything and sit on the couch. I was like, oh.
I didn't know there were rodents though.
Yeah, neither did I. Huh.
Well, I guess there is a rodent.
What I was going to say is that I feel like, I mean, maybe sometimes they just thought they were cool animals. But I do think a lot of times in symbolism, I think when certain animals, when they decide to start drawing animals like over and over again, kind of like in Egypt, I do think there's something specific to that animal that they also find very unusual, not human-like or extrasensory, that maybe that's why they kind of pick those animals. There's something special about them. So I find that interesting, that animal.
Yeah, the connection with all these animals being chosen for their clans. I mean, there's a story that that they would identify their clan. That would be the first animal that they would connect with or see. That would become their clan symbol. They would then choose that sometime on a vision quest or a path where they go from juvenile to adulthood, they would decide as to what their clan was and choose that as part of their initiation to the tribe.
Actually, that actually makes sense because you will find those type of rituals and traditions throughout. It doesn't matter from all the way north, all the way down to the tip of South America. So it does make sense that there was communication between them. And Darlene's mentioned that it's said that in the old world of North America, everything was accessible through some sort of a highway system of the rivers. So the rivers were key to which actually makes sense why that river is right by that shrine.
That's a way of transportation if you think about it. You didn't have instead of the subways, you used the waterways. You know what I'm saying? That's a correct path to get somewhere. I mean, you may not have, you may not know exactly what you're facing, but if you got, enough balls to do it, you'll get in there and see if you can make it down.
Yeah, they had all these different clan symbols. There was the bear, the bird, turtles, wildcat, panthers, snakes, canines, dogs, and wolves. Animism, there were a lot of human figurines as well, little stone figurines. There were the panels or tablets, shown. A lot of them, the people had been depicted as folk smoking. There were pipes and everything as well. There were quartz bowls and cups, and like I mentioned, the cross-hatched boats. And the cooking stones often were made of steatite with a hole through it. There were some that looked like globes. There were like deer, or literally deer figurines or animal scenes. Thunderbird. There were Thunderbird figurines as well. Everything imaginable. I mean, here's some more pictures kind of showing generally what the quartz bowls were looking like. There were stone bowls and pipes and axes or celts. A lot of beads were found as well. And
I have to say that pottery is kind of rather impressive for as old as it is. I mean, maybe I'm too much into it, but that is actually just my opinion. If it does look like that, that's pretty fine. Like, that's impressive.
Well, again, these are actually just created images from AI, but the depiction is there to show what was found. Like they identified a quartz bowl was found, a stone bowl. So
I would even think making a bowl out of quartz is kind of impressive.
Yeah, the quartz. It was described as veined quartz. That was one of the first things they found, and so it must have been sitting there like on the surface when they walked up to it.
Did they test a silly question? Did they test the pipe to see if there was anything in it? Like, did they test it for like chemicals that might have been left over?
No, that's a good question. I really think they should, because when I was at the museum and I smelled the pipe and it smelled like smoke. I mean, there's definitely residue in there that could be tested, and it just hasn't been tested. It would be great to determine what the material is and the composition.
Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Why do you think they're reluctant to do these tests?
I think it's because they don't want people to know about it, and it would just open up so many questions. And
I think also it would also prove them wrong on what they have been telling us for decades.
Yes.
That these tribes were isolated and they didn't communicate. And they actually, with this shrine, if what I'm assuming is correct, proves all that wrong. And they were a little bit more sophisticated within their communication within these different tribes than they have been given credit for.
Yes, that's right. It would prove intercontinental contact with people that had camels and rhinoceroses. Either that, or it would prove a time frame of people living here in the Ice Age. It would just open up a lot of questions. I don't think they want those questions asked, and so they keep it in a storage locker. And well, look, this is the list of all the ones that have gone missing. The catalog here shows these were numbered artifacts in their collection that are no longer there. So these have been taken away by somebody over between the time they numbered them and today.
Okay, hold on. You got a hippo. That looks like a hippopotamus. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's hippopotamuses. There's
Last I checked, they're not from North Carolina. They're not in North Carolina.
No.
Right. There's hand figurines, leg figurines, and human figurines of all sorts. Pipes. There's a lot of like these perforated type of vessel or steatite objects, axes, wedges, all kinds of things.
I'm sorry. Do you remember off the top of your head where hippopotamuses are native to? Because I don't think they're in South America either.
South Africa.
That's what I thought.
I thought Africa.
So wow. All I'm going to say is wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
I was thinking this earlier during your presentation, but that site might have been the Native Americans' version of the United Nations.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much there. And this slide shows some of the descriptions from the excavations that they found. Buried, burned skeletons on a side of a mound. They found small skeletons with grave goods and terrapin shells.
Did you ever show this stuff to Jason, shaman?
Yes, I mean, yeah, shaman. I've been communicating with shaman, and
did he tell you that the mound that he found over by him is almost basically shaped just like this?
I heard about that.
Yeah. Dude, if you take out the bones, the mound looks just like that. It was like carved. There was a mound made, and then the back of it like got carved into and dug into the ground. Like you actually go into the mound to an extent.
Yeah.
Backside.
This one, there was skeletons of a child underneath a hearth, the hard floor, and it was in an envelope of clay.
Yeah, he was thinking it might have been somebody buried there.
And there was two kneeling skeletons described in a mound called McComb's Mound.
Any elongated skulls? Thanks, Felix.
Yeah, right.
Not that I know of. But the skull that was depicted earlier was the one that appeared to have been shot or blown up after death, a post-mortem damage. And this one had beads and shells underneath the burial, and it was in a sitting up position. And this was called Smathers Mound. And then the next mound, so there was Wells Farm. Wells Mound had a sitting skeleton. I mean, this is how they were buried. All of these different burials right on that site were all found. See, it says they were found in 1980, from November 1980 to January 1881, February. All of these were dug up. And there were stone box graves as well, rock coffins, and stone box walls. All these were found in 1980 or 1880. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe it's me, but that's almost like oh gosh, I can't say the word correctly. So the Egyptian
sarcophagus.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, clay coffins like sarcophagus. Yeah, blue clay pots were described too. So these are actual blue clay with bear's teeth in them.
Nick, I don't remember her name.
Darlene, maybe?
Darlene.
Yes.
With what Darlene shared with us, and with this, there was definitely, I, without a doubt at this point, believe that throughout the world, there was, at least on this side of the world, there was intermingling.
Yeah, at least I think it shows that at least people came over here, like you're saying, yeah. For sure, way before than we were expected to believe. Yeah.
Yeah, look, these were described as giant blue clay pots, I guess, filled with ashes and coal and burnt brown earth in different sizes, post holes. And so these were containing bear's teeth and all kinds of things. And then they had wooden burial elements as well, like wooden coffin, not confirmed, but it was described as being found in a trough with layers of wooden structural elements.
Do you know what direction those bones are facing?
It didn't say in particular, but the mound itself was surveyed with the ground penetrating radar and geophys, and it was determined to be north and south in orientation.
Oh, okay.
So there was pottery, a lot of this was like a giant rock wall that had been dug up, and they found all these underneath it. So it's thought that the plausible reconstruction, it was a stone mound basically with a central chamber filled with offerings. In the wall, underneath the wall, there were all these artifacts found.
Hmm.
And then, interestingly, the chiefs, the Cherokee, were interviewed in the articles, and it said Chief Bushy Head and Chief Smith both said that the images found were rainmaker images. They were basically there to bring the rain, and they were real relics described as linking the medicine men to rainmaking practices.
Those mounds are interesting. Especially those hollowed out ones or those made ones. Like, I doubt it's the same thing going on back then with any of these. Well, the ones that are like hollowed or that you could walk into. It's just one of the images that you showed looked a lot like, when Tycho Brahe was reading the stars, he built things into the ground and then would view them, and it would almost look like mounds, like little mounds on his property, because he went down, because then it would stop. Like if you were trying to view something and he was using like wooden shit just to get sight lines, the wind ain't gonna fuck it up or move it or anything, so it's more accurate. But like, it almost looks like some of them almost look like that you were showing. I understand that those like are not the real things, the reinterpretations, but it looked a lot like his mounds that he was building to view the stars with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of evidence that it was a astronomical site. Like archaeoastronomy was important, apparently, because of the north-south orientation, and the north-south orientation, and as well as magnetic north, was a line that was built into Cahokia mounds as well. So, I had started out researching about Cahokia mounds, and I found out that the entire site axis is based on the magnetic north line, which is exactly how they constructed the central axis of the Cahokia mounds in alignment with the magnetic north.
Yeah, I like Darlene's questions. Basically, Joseph Smith and all this shit. You know who he is, Vince?
Joseph Smith, I guess he's in the Mormons.
Yeah. And he's got, that whole story's got, Native American tribes and shit, if you look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about it other than I don't think this is directly attributed to the Mormons, but
no, I'm just playing around. It's just like, you should be around here somewhere, right?
Yeah. But Osborne, these are the letters that he wrote. And I was mentioning, I was able to transcribe these all with AI now. And it's amazing. They're calligraphy writing. I could hardly read it, but you plug it into AI and it translates it correctly into English. And so all these stats are from the letters that Osborne wrote, who he wrote them to, and when he wrote them. And these are the writers of the letters. It talks about the groups, the quantity of letters through time. And this graph shows how many letters he wrote and when the important events happened, and the relationships, the letters. It can even read the relationships, whether it's a positive letter or a negative letter. It can tell you. And so this graph here depicts the letters that are positive and the ones that are negative. And guess what? The negative ones were to the Smithsonian. Basically, all the Smithsonian letters are negative, but the majority of all the others are positive. And so the summary for the anti-authenticity argument is that this is an institutional conflict. It's basically one museum versus another. They both want the business. They didn't want the other one to succeed, so they undermined each other. And there's evidence that even Valentine tried to undermine the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian tried to undermine him. So I mean, it was a feud going back and forth. Like, for example, when Valentine brought artifacts to see the Smithsonian and Charles Rao, he brought some fake artifacts with him, knowing they were fake, and he showed them to Charles Rao and said, what's this? And Charles Rao was like, this can't be real. And he said, oh, I know it's not. I was just trying to test you. And basically, so he was trying to trick him, doing the trickster thing of tricking him into being able to see if he could tell whether something was real or not. And I think that affected their relationship materially. They didn't, at that point, they didn't get along because they were basically trying to trick each other or undermine each other. And so there's a lot of positive relationships in the letters that are described, like that they found a lot of good compliments and endorsement of the people. They were happy with the site, and basically Osborne was the facilitator of all this. Valentine was the collector or patron of the museum, paying Osborne to do the archaeology. He had contracted these other people to help to collect the artifacts. And like Merritt Burnett and Quinn, these people were local landowners. And A.J. Osborne worked with the landowners to try to get these artifacts collected and preserved. And the native contacts, we talked about Chief Bushy Head, who said these are for rainmaking from the medicine men. And these are other people that lived that were associated with the letters that he wrote. And then I was able to correlate the Photo Bucket album with the site as well, just to show that I was able to add detail to the catalog from the photos that I took in Photo Bucket to show the artifacts. Some of them, like this one, it's an 8-stem pipe bowl. So literally it has 8 pipe stems coming out of this pipe bowl that was for smoking. There's banner stones, hand figurines.
Fucking party time with that one. You got to test that one. There was more than tobacco in that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it had to be
something really good in there.
Yeah.
And then so there's so many different types. There's a lot. Majority are animals, but then there's vessels, containers. A lot of the vessels and containers and bowls, they actually have faces on them or cross hatching, and they're covered with objects. Indicating that they're living, like the cross hatching vessels. There's handles. There's some square vessels. This is, this is the total figurine. So I can show you any detail if you want me to stop. But there's like square vessels, round vessels, total, like all these different rectangular vessels. There's circular, there's some that have handles, figurines with vessels with human figurines holding hands around the outside of the vessels.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's bowls and square vessels, all different shapes and sizes.
I do have a comment, though. With all these different animal figurines, these vessels honestly should be, and it should have been done decades ago, tested for where the source of the materials.
Yes, that's a good comment. I mean, it's true. It would be amazing to source the materials, and the technology's there now. There's there's a device that can, it's a handheld device, and it can determine the material composition based on a laser beam. Basically, it determines the composition elements in the material, and it can determine where that material came from with a click of a button. And I asked if I could use that, and the museum said no.
Did they give you a reason why?
They didn't want to. I mean, they didn't say why. They just wouldn't allow it. You know, it's a non-destructive test. It would be easy and quick, and they wouldn't allow it. And you can see some of them are coated with red ochre, like this reddish color. Bowls. All of these pottery bowls some of them have zigzag pattern like lightning. You know, this is the 978 remaining objects that I'm showing you because there's just so many. But
how many did you say was missing?
There's, I think it was around 30 or 40. Had the list at the beginning of this. But see, then there's like square boxes, bowls. That was like a canoe figurine here, it looks like. And then a lot of these vessels are shaped like, you know, pottery with different angles, and there are different colors. That apparently some are charred and others are red ochre coated. There's some that have faces on the side of them like that.
It looks like you're flipping through an Etsy page.
Yeah.
Handles.
Was there any? Somebody did ask. Is that actually just a question? Was there any fingerprints extracted? You know, from any of this stuff?
I'm not sure. I mean, fingerprints.
Yeah, but I'm thinking out of it as like I wonder if there was a print left in the clay, more of like that, not that it's actually like, you know, there was a fingerprint left.
Well,
buried.
Come to think of it, T.R. Kidder was given a presentation one time over at St. Louis about Poverty Point, and he said one of his favorite discoveries is a fingerprint in the clay, like of a pottery vessel. He said he just thought it was amazing that the clay could preserve pottery fingerprint, and I'll never forget that. But yeah, I mean that's an example of it actually surviving with a fingerprint.
Also,
oh, go ahead.
No, also Margaret also asked, because I think it was Margaret you took that from, Nick.
Oh, might have been. Yeah, I saw it somewhere.
She has another question. She said, any wheel thrown or all coil slab work found?
Well, that one that I showed here, I'll go back up to it. This one over here, number 258, that looks like it's thrown on a wheel. I mean, it's got a flat bottom, sides are tapering. It looks to me like, and I inspected this one in person. I thought, how could that be? I mean, it looks like it's thrown on a wheel. But yeah, that one in particular, you know, some of these almost look, yeah, they look like they're wheel thrown like this. I mean, it's possible. It describes it as a concave base, wide at the bottom, sides narrow to shoulder, straight neck, all exterior plain except for smooth decoration. So yeah, I mean, it's possible they had the wheel to throw the pottery. And
yeah, I never would have thought of that.
I wouldn't have either.
Yeah, right.
This is one of those that I think might be a Mason symbol with an eye. And this could be like the Mason, like a Freemason device, and then the shrine symbol here. So I think this one in particular, maybe Mason, stonemason attributed. There's all different kinds of animal figurines, human figurines of all sorts.
Look at those figures. Those go back up again if you don't mind. Those are pretty wild looking.
Yeah, like this one looks like they have a pot on their head. They're holding their hands up and holding a pot.
I just realized, you know how a lot of people always say, no matter where you go in the world and you find these artifacts, they look similar. This could be the reason why. And this site probably explains that.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. There's a lot of similarity around the world. I mean, Egypt and even Australia uses similar motifs and symbols, and they use the cross hatching at both those places. So, yeah, it's amazing, the similarities.
And actually, there's so many tests that needs to be done, especially carbon dating, especially with the one with the wheel one. It'll tell you how far back they have been using such a tool.
Yeah, I agree. If they can radiocarbon date even a few micrograms from the inside of these or the pipes, that would tell them so much.
I have to ask you, how long have you been doing this research?
Since about 2003. So 23 years.
And you feel like you just hit the tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like all this exists, but they won't allow anyone to study it or test. They won't allow any testing done on these artifacts to actually determine a material age or property. So much is a mystery. I mean, I've always liked mysteries. This is a pretty big mystery. And like I mentioned, it's kind of like a rabbit hole. I mean, some of these are bright yellow ochre material, like they call this a bird figurine. And there's all different kinds of birds represented. And human figurines, they look like chiefs seated on a throne. How about this one? You mentioned aliens. I mean, that's kind of an alien looking one right there. They called it a human figurine, but I think that looks more alien.
Yeah, kind of does actually with that head.
Here's a Thunderbird type of motif, winged being. And then they start getting into coupled figurines. You know, two people. People sitting on thrones and chairs. That one kind of looks like Venus, you know, Venus figurine, but just sitting, kneeling.
These figurines are really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of human figurines. Pipe smoking human that's laying down.
Yeah.
And some of them have looks like dresses on, like, you know, dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one person holding their hand up. So there's one that's saluting.
Mm.
And then people smoking pipes. These are pipe smoking depictions. And this one's like a Mayan dwarf figurine. Humans riding horses. There's several figurines showing that. You know, this one looks like they're wearing armor. I looked at this one close up, and it's literally like plated armor and an armor helmet.
Would you think it was close resemblance? It resembles a conquistador?
Yeah, possibly a conquistador or Chinese Ming Dynasty armor. This one is a riding side saddle. It's actually a woman sitting side saddle on a horse or a four-legged figure riding, and it's depicted on a platform. And then look at this pipe. It's bigger than the person themselves. And it's like this giant pipe or bowl that's in the middle. There's a lot of them that are depicted smoking pipes as well, like ceremonial pipes. And figurines shaking hands.
Yeah, they really need to test those. Not that I'm like, oh, pro drugs. It's just I have noticed just even recently, probably in the last year, like how many different areas or like certain things have been tested recently, and they're like, oh, we found THC in this person's pipe. We found THC at this site. We found these like areas where they were burning massive amounts of stuff at ritual sites. Oh, there was weed in there too. Yes.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to test it and find out what's in there. And it could just be a swab that would take. It wouldn't destroy it. It would just be a quick test that could be done. And some of them are cracked, like these. These actually had been cracked in half, and there's red color inside the fresh cracks. Like the heat treatment would have been very high to change the color to red like that. And so the bears were very numerous in this collection. That was high of the animals. There were more bears than any other animal. And some rabbits, there was quite a bit of rabbits depicted.
Those bears?
Yeah, bears. They seem to be holding on to something. And I think it represents a shrine, or these objects depicted were crosshatched with whatever they were holding on to. It was like a crosshatched slab.
Yeah, right. It looks like a tablet.
Yeah. And they had long noses that were very detailed with crosshatching.
Almost all the bears, like half of them, at least, almost all of them up there, they were all kind of doing the same shit with something in their hand. They had to be depicting something,
Yeah, these look like hogs or pigs. And this one's a sheep over here, I guess. And so they're all different, but they're so unique, and they really have artistry. Here's the one that's supposed to be a rhino. It used to have a horn on the middle here that projected up about an inch, but that broke off.
So these things weren't handled correctly as well.
Right, they've been mishandled and broken. I mean, the fresh cracks, that's because someone dropped it and broke it in their collection. And they smashed the horn off the rhino. I mean, it's like, that's terrible. They've been mishandled for over 100 years, broken and displaced and lost many times. Like, there's so many that have gone missing. Bison are depicted quite a bit. And the sacred bison was important. And some like this are almost like a unicorn looking thing. And
are these at the Smithsonian?
Yeah, there's 30 of them at the Smithsonian, and the 970 here are from the Valentine Museum, and then there's about 600 at the University of North Carolina.
Yeah, there is a lot of these things.
All different kinds of animals. And animal heads, like that were depicted. Bears, all kinds of animals that look like that might be a lion or something. And then there's aquatic animals too. Like that looks almost like an otter swimming. And they had squirrels or skunks depicted as well. And fish, there was a lot of fish figurines. There's a flounder. This is a flat flounder figurine. And whales, almost narwhals. This one has dots like a narwhal. A bull. This one has a rhino or bull figurine. Turtles. There's a lot of turtle figurines as well. Serpent. There's less snake figurines and even spiders. This is like a daddy long leg spider figurine. There's birds of all sorts. This one could be a loon, or this one. And yeah, a lot of bird figurines here of different varieties.
You could admire the accuracy of these figures as well.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a lot of great care that went into making them.
Yeah, the accuracy, and I mean, even just to see it with a blurry image, it's just amazing. But to see it close up is even more amazing. The artistry and the accuracy that went into these is incredible. They have like a tactile quality that is impressive to see, and they're all different of a high level of quality. All the pipes are amazing too. There's so many pipes. And then it starts getting into perforated vessels. These are like the ones at Poverty Point. Perforated. Because what they would do is they'd put it in a fire and they'd stick a stick in there to be able to take it out of the fire. Once it heats up, then they would put it in the water and boil the water. So these are for the heating elements on cooking food. And these similar ones have been found at Poverty Point that are carved into effigies. And donut stones as well, the same thing. They were using for cooking. And this one's like there's 8 holes in this one. Some are shaped like arrowheads with faces and axes. And this is the one that I sent a picture of the other day with the Muskogee chief depicted. These are vessels, cylindrical vessels, but they're hollow, and they almost look like they're thrown pottery, but yeah, they're actually hollowed out in the middle to be able to hold the liquid. And the pentagonal type of vessels, pentagonal steatite with a hole drilled through were important because that seems to be common to the Savannah River, Georgia site area. They had similar types that were used in heating of liquid and boiling water. And this one is almost a tray, but it has a similar pentagonal shape. And then there's effigies with toads or frogs inside there. It's almost like they were using these to depict a frog in a bowl. And that is something associated with the hallucination qualities from toads in like the Sahara toad. They would use this in shaman ceremonies to hallucinate.
Okay, party time.
Yeah.
That's where they had the hookah piece over there, that thing for the hookah.
All kinds of axes. This is a banner stone called a lunar crescent banner stone. And that's it. Oh, there's other ones are just fragments that they bagged up.
that was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't overwhelming. I just wanted to show that.
Oh no, I did. Some of that stuff actually looked really impressive. Like those figurines, I actually do think those things were really nice.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to see the slides on the letters that Osborne sent and kind of dig into it, well, it's available now online. And you can just click on this the link to the script that's provided in the chat, and then you can read it all, and it's got amazing details about what they found.
It's actually quite amazing how you could connect the dots with other people who've done similar research to you in other locations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the research has been interesting to connect it to the Australian cultures in the north part of Australia, and also even Africa. There's a lot of similarities in Africa. The Ivory Coast area of Africa has similar types of figurines that were made of steatite, and they were in honor of their chiefs, and they often covered them with cross-hatching. So same material, same subject matter, but just very far apart in the world. And hopefully this will help people to just study the past and learn about the possible connections that the world, is not that far apart, and everyone was related in some way.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it shows that. That's that area you're looking at for sure. I think it shows a whole bunch of stuff coming together. Something was going on.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was really interesting, Vince.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else that you're still working on now? Any other things, or with this situation, or it was just kind of like up to date with what you've been doing?
Well, that's the latest up to date information. I have been checking. Like, one of the really interesting things on the AI is now we're able to track time and do an analysis quickly, and you can use the AI to determine quantity versus time graphs and determine how things have changed through time. So I'll share my screen here and show kind of what I've found out about this. Is this clan symbol distribution map here shows the quantity of bear clans, the quantity of birds, wolves, hooved animals, and snakes. Well, so these are the locations that those clan symbols are located, usually around Lake Superior, the Ojibwe up here, and then the Muskogee, Cahokia had the Birdman, the Yuchi, and the Gwale had clan symbols. And this shows the position. The position is shown in blue. So when they were made is on this graph. So this is 600 AD all the way up to 2000. So the quantity is shown here in blue, and then so it shows that they actually started increasing production in orange here, and then decreased it around the year 1200. And then so from that point on, they slowed down production of the clan symbols that were used. And so, but these symbols were used, like shows here, the bear was in the Ojibwe, and the only two places were Lake Superior and Mount Pisgah. For the bird, it was at Cahokia, Mount Pisgah, the Yuchi, and the Gwale. And for the wolf, it was found in Lake Superior and Mount Pisgah. Lake Superior, and the hooved animals were found in Lake Superior and Mount Pisgah. So there's only two places that they've really been found. And even though Lake Superior is the center for clans, well, Mount Pisgah was the outpost, the southern outpost, and the turtles, they relate to Cahokia, Mount Pisgah, and Lake Superior. The Muskogee used the small rare animals, and so they related to the Yuchi, the Gwale, and so that helps to come up with this graph here. So the quantity versus time basically is visibility count, the number of clan symbols that were found at specific times can be charted here. Like there's, and the times that they're used. So around 1250, there's over 30 animals that were bears that they found as far as the clan symbols. And so then it's interesting because you can make a quantity versus time graph and then do a derivative to determine the when it was made and how it changed through time. And so what I did is I used this, I made derivatives for all of these different clan symbols to determine when they were made and how it changed. And they seem to change pretty similarly for each of the clan symbols. The wolf symbol, the wolf clan, the hood clan, they all seem to have similar type of changes, just different quantities through time. So they really show a peak around 1000 to 1450. And after that point, they dropped off. And so that's useful because it really dates the symbols to pre-contact for the majority of the production. And then Gerald Wiesnor is an author that really was into this position in time and how things change with velocity. And so he gave the message that these should be used against dominance and towards sovereignty. And the clans that he developed that he thinks these fall into are shown here, that each of these represents our modern representation of the clans of what it's like today for the tribes. In the timeline, he came up with these ideas from 1964 to 1992 and wrote about it in a lot of articles. And he attributed these to Columbus crossing over to the White Earth subdivision. And then also there's some links to China as well as the Japan haiku. And so there's Pacific connections as well. And so the thing that tells us is that visibility has a growth and decline, and inflection shows when the cultures change through time. And you can apply that to the different technologies like microblade technology. When was it made and how did it change? So this tells us that it increased through time and then decreased. The peak was around 1000 BC, and the velocity represents the production of microblades. So if it's below 0, they weren't producing, and then if it's above 0, then they were producing it. So they started to increase this peak around 2000 BC all the way up to about 0 or 180 or so. That's when they made the most microblades. And then there's connections here to the other things like celts. Well, the celts, this is a production scale for celts, 6000 BC to 2000 AD. I mean, to current time, basically. And so it shows the production through time and how it changed for celts, for stoneworking tools, coin finds, basically that's 0, that's flat. Any loom finds for like loom woven brocades are shown here. And then there's meteorite finds through time, how they change in archaeological context. Faience beads. There's banner stone finds, how they change through time. And this is interesting because it correlates with the bow and arrow adoption. So when they used banner stones, it was before the bow and arrow. It started to decrease because of climate stress in 4.2 thousand years ago. And then they dropped off. This one shows the steatite vessel manufacture. So we saw those pottery vessels. Well, steatite vessels peaked around 1000 BC. And then they dropped off, right when pottery was adopted. So pottery started around 500 BC, and it replaced steatite. And it shows here that production stopped because it goes below 0, and they deaccelerated. And then grooved plummets was starting around 1500, going to 1000 AD. The Tanit signs we were talking about, they started around 1000 BC, went up to 400 AD, and they changed after Roman conquest. So these bars line up with world history events. That kind of shows that quantity versus time reflects what's going on in the world. The myrrh archaeological finds. Well, there's only been 4 places in the world that myrrh has ever been found. And it's very uncommon. Leomano. This is an interesting carve because it shows shark's tooth clubs found in Polynesia, how they increased to a high production. 22,500 clubs were found that were made of shark's teeth. And then they decreased. And they align with chiefly warfare causing decrease and then European conquest and firearms replacing them. Cowrie shells, cross-hatching symbolism. We were talking about cross-hatching. Well, it's just increased through time. It's always constantly increased. And so, yeah, those charts and graphs are based on the actual data that you can just plug into AI and it automatically creates a data curve. And we were talking about the African connection. Well, Luba people of Central Africa had figurines called memory boards, Lukasa, and they use those to transmit stories and keepers of memory. Just like we were seeing all those boards, women as spiritual vessels, they would use these, and they went from the 5th century all the way up to the 1900s and 18th century, preserving the history. And this is their curve about the time on when they were made. Starting around the 16th century, they increased production and they decreased. So their peak of production was around 1800. Or no, I'm sorry, 1700. So this is 1700, and then at 1800, they dropped off and declined and they stopped producing them. And then this is the Georgia and Florida cultures. So they had a peak of around 2000 BC, and then it decreased. So it kind of puts a time frame lens on what we're seeing here with early cultural peak that occurred in the Archaic period around 2000 BC. And the same thing goes with the South American. We were talking about South American figurines. Well, those are found all over the coast of South America. They had the same cross-hatching. And they're found in all these places, Corral, Aspiro, Chora. These are found that started around 3000 BC, and they went all the way up to about 750 BC. So then we talked about Macedon and mammoths. Well, they go back to 38,000 BC. And there's evidence of white sands footprints in New Mexico and Clovises that were found as well that had human culture that were from the Ice Age time 38,000 years ago. So this graph shows what that culture looked like. So that's it. I mean, the time frame is amazing just to consider 38,000 years ago. People were living here in Colorado Plateau.
That's amazing the way everything connects too, and how far back it does. That right there could tell you the history. That goes along with the history of what was going around the world too. It coincides.
Yes, it's amazing to think of all the cultural connection there around the world. It's prevalent.
Very.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And
thank you, man. That was a lot of stuff. That was awesome. Even that dating at the end was like really impressive. It shows like a lot of stuff. I'd say between I don't know, 1600 to 2000 BC seems a lot going on in that area. I would say with like the stuff we were looking at, I'd say it all seems to fit in around there. I think.
I could see how it took you 21 years and then you still got more to look at.
Yeah, oh my gosh, there's so much. And I mean, the great thing is ChatGPT has all this available. Like I made all those slides last week in ChatGPT. Like literally, you can just throw them together. I mean, it takes an instant, and you can make the information accumulate just by asking it to do that, because it's so automatic. It's amazing. So yeah, it's incredible what AI has now.
Yeah, that was an impressive show, Vince. Real.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or about this site before we start to wrap it up?
Just thank you so much, and I appreciate it talking about it, and it's been great.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully we stay in touch. And
Yeah. You gotta let me know when you have more stuff to present on it, or if you ever find something else you go crazy with, please let me know.
thank you.
I'll definitely check it out. Lord, Judith, please let everybody know what's up with you.
Vince, thank you very much for sharing this information. It is, I could see the rabbit hole. I don't know if we could just call it a rabbit hole. It's bigger than that, but we'll just say rabbit hole. You could find me at Spreaker, X, and YouTube as The Loon. And once again, thank you, Nick, for having me.
No, of course. No, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. That was fun. That was definitely some interesting shit. Vince, please, sir, let everybody know, I guess, anything you want to promote, or if you want to let people know where to get in touch with you or anything.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be available on chat, or I mean, if you look at the text or the comments, there's a link to the slideshow, and you can go on there and read about it. If you click on there, I'll have updated my slides and add in new information all the time. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. One thing I do want to ask before we let you go, have you been like trying to send this or present any of this information to like people that actually like, matter, or they're like trying to get people to look at it and be like, maybe there's something here?
Well, I've been trying to get a hold of the Smithsonian and the Ballantyne Museum and the University of North Carolina, and all of those are like talking to a brick wall. Where they curate this stuff, but they won't allow anyone to study it or look at it. And it's partly because of NAGPRA. So, I mean, I think NAGPRA rules changed the ability to study it. So luckily I got in before that rule took effect, kind of, and I was able to study it. But I still think it should be more study done.
Oh, for sure. Well, hopefully maybe you'll get somewhere with it one day, maybe. You get something, looked at afterwards.
Yeah.
After all this. But thank you again, Vince. I think it was amazing work. I think it might have been more than you did last time. It was really impressive stuff. So
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody in the chat. I appreciate the questions, too. And Judith, thank you for seeing them. I appreciate you keeping an eye out. Great co-host. Yes, thank you, everybody, for showing up. That's why we go live. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.